Welcome back to Malden's Revolution. I'm Mark Linehan. 250 years ago today...
Mac, you missed the 4th of July.
What do you mean? I had a great 4th of July.
Yeah, well, you didn't do an episode about what Malden was doing on July 4th, 1776.
Yeah, because nothing happened that day.
What?
July 4th and July 2nd in 1776 were very big days in Philadelphia, but Malden and the rest of Massachusetts didn't find out about it for a couple of weeks, which was how long it took the news to travel. According to the Massachusetts Historical Society, express riders brought the first printed copy of the Declaration of Independence to Boston on July 15th. It was first printed in a Massachusetts newspaper on July 16th in Salem, and the Declaration was publicly read for the masses from the balcony of what we today call the Old State House on July 18th, 2 weeks after John Hancock signed the document in Philadelphia. So while we all continue to celebrate America's 250th birthday, at Malden's Revolution, America is only 2 weeks old. 250 years ago today, on July 16th, 1776, a document is drawn up listing all the men who have deserted from Colonel Bond's regiment since the beginning of the year, when the 25th Continental Regiment was created, including when it was still participating in the siege of Boston. This document names 2 deserters from Malden. Desertion would be a constant problem for both the colonial forces and the British military during the American Revolution. Part of the problem was that if you were an American or British soldier fighting in North America, almost everywhere you went, you spoke the same language as the civilian population, so it would have been much easier for you to ask for help, buy supplies, or buy someone's silence. It may seem strange to do an entire episode focused on a single piece of paper, but once Malden leaves Boston, the amount of helpful documentation decreases significantly. Almost everything that we've talked about in this series has been verified or derived from state or local records, and that's because on November 8th, 1800, a devastating fire destroyed all the official records of the War Department. And for decades, we believed that all federal records of the American Revolution had been lost. Now, for the last 30 years, researchers have worked to painstakingly recreate the records that were lost by tracking down copies and records in other locations and digitizing them in one place. You can explore this work yourself at wardepartmentpapers.org. But these files are mostly from the early years of the Republic, not the years of the American Revolution. There is still a tremendous amount of documentary evidence from the war itself that has been lost. So let's take a closer look at this document and inspect it for ourselves. So right at the top of the document, it says that this document was created in Crown Point on July 16th, 1776. Crown Point is a little bit less than 20 miles north of Fort Ticonderoga. It's labeled as a return of deserters from Colonel William Bond's regiment since January 1st, 1776. So this would indicate to me that something big must have happened in mid-July 1776. To say we need to know how many people have deserted in about 7.5 months, that's a really weird length of time. So my first indication with the date of this is that this must have been right after something big, probably a defeat. So the list is organized with the names of the deserters on the far left, and then their information is given as to their company, their age, their size, their complexion, their time of defection, the town they're from, and the government or colony that that town is in. Now, this is really cool. Demographic information does not become standard information for soldiers in the Continental Army until it is reorganized in 1777. So we have a lot of this information for any soldiers who joined the Continental Army from 77 onward. But for soldiers in 1775 and 1776, this information is actually not common at all. So you can see as we scroll down that the names are not organized alphabetically. The names are actually organized by company. So they're in order of company captains. So we know that Naylor Hatch was the 3rd captain of the regiment. So that is probably why he is the 3rd captain listed on here. But anytime I find a list like this, I'm just going to scroll right over to town and scan the town column for any names that match Malden. And sure enough, we've got 2 Maldonians on this list, Joel Whittemore and William Badger. A couple things stick out to me right away. First of all, Joel Whittemore sounds familiar. Whittemore is a common Malden name. There are plenty of towns with Whittemores in it. Whittemore or Wettemore or Wetmore, Whitmore, any variation of that name. William Badger? I don't think I've come across a Badger in Malden. It gives both Joel Whitmore and William Badger as being in Naylor Hatch's company. William Badger is 30. Joel Whitmore is 19. Joel Whitmore is 5'4". William Badger is 5'6". They are both listed as having dark complexions. Early in my research, I thought this meant that someone was a person of color, but in fact, as we have evidenced on this list itself, if someone was what we would call Black or African American, they were almost always listed as Negro or mulatto. Those were the terms that they would use depending on someone's complexion or background. So for this, we have people described as light, we have people described as dark, and we also have a couple men on this list described as Negroes. The other thing that's interesting is that the two Malden men actually have something different than all the other men on this list next to their dates. It says that they are both list sick in Malden March 18th, which is the day after Evacuation Day. This is the day that the regiments were ordered to march to Connecticut to sail for New York. So these two men either were genuinely sick and didn't go with the regiment and then just never followed up. They just stayed behind and were sick, or they suddenly decided they really didn't want to leave Malden and they went, I'm sick. I can't fight the war. Another funny thing I have to keep reminding myself anytime I'm doing this kind of research, Massachusetts Bay Colony included what is today the entire state of Maine. So you're always seeing towns that you're like, what town is that? On this list of deserters are two men from Waldoboro, Massachusetts. And as a lifetime resident of Massachusetts, I'm thinking, where is Waldoboro? Where Waldoboro is now Maine. So not all Maldonians are saints. Even men fighting for American independence are still fallible human beings. But this paper from Crown Point brings up another important question. In a previous episode, we had followed the men of Malden through Massachusetts and Connecticut as they sailed to New York and eventually made their way all the way to Crown Point, where this return of deserters was created. So I have to ask the question, did Malden invade Canada? See you soon.
In case any of you are wondering, no, I'm not using a filter. This is smoke from Canadian wildfires. That's why it looks so dystopian and weird today up here at Boojum Rock. Not a filter.